Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on differential educational achievement by ethnicity, focusing on parental support. One of the reasons offered by sociologists for the differences in educational achievement of different ethnic groups is parental support. But before we examine the differences in parental support of different ethnic groups, it's worth looking at the most recent data on the achievement of different ethnic groups in education. From the chart on screen, you can see that there are noticeable differences in the educational achievement of different groups. This data is looking at one of the newer measures of educational achievement, Attainment 8, which we've featured in a couple of videos in this series already. Attainment 8 looks at the point score that students achieve from their best 8 GCSEs, with points being awarded based upon the grade a student attains. A grade 9 will get 9 points, a grade 8 will get 8 points, and so on down to 1 point for a grade 1. However, if a student doesn't sit 8 GCSEs or equivalent, they are allocated a score of 0 for each qualification not taken, which is a methodological flaw with this data. However, what the data does show us is that minority ethnic groups such as Chinese and Indian students achieve far higher than some of their peers. At the bottom end, Black Caribbean, Pakistani and white students perform less well than their peers. One thing to notice here is the gap between Black African and Black Caribbean students. Black African students perform significantly better than Black Caribbean and even white students, and this is something worth commenting on when you talk about trends in educational achievement. There is a big difference between Black Caribbean and Black African culture, and that is something many sociology students won't mention in their essays. So just to put these trends into some form of context, Chinese and Indian students get better grades than their peers, whilst there are differences between Pakistani, Bangladeshi and Indian students, who are often lumped together under the generic Asian students label. Being able to explain why there are differences between these students is a sign of deeper knowledge and understanding, and likewise this is the same for Black African and Black Caribbean students, so beware of making generalisations such as Asian and Black students in exams, particularly when it comes to describing achievement. One thing that is noticeable from these trends is that our assumption that white students perform best because of the advantages they have in society is incorrect. While there are differences when it comes to middle class and white working class, most other ethnic groups have overtaken white students in terms of achievement, with only Black students, as a generic group and mainly because of the lower rates of achievement of students of Caribbean descent, performing at a lower level than a generic group of white students. And as with other generic groupings, there are differences between white British, white Irish and white other, usually European. As already mentioned, one of the reasons for these differences is the level of parental support. In Asian families, there are some similarities in the support that parents provide for their children, with Bassett suggesting that there is a culture of Indian and Pakistani parents promoting educational capital, good grades and university degrees, as a form of social mobility for their children. This is further supported by Barty, who suggested that Asian families have higher levels of interest in their children's education and are more supportive of their children's achievements. While some may argue that this is due to residual cultural capital gained from wealthier families migrating to the UK, Madood suggests that this is typical of all social classes, and that even working class Asian families see the benefits of their children continuing their education to undergraduate level and beyond. Chinese students outperform all other social groups, and significantly so. According to Francis, part of the reason for this level of achievement is the cultural background of high academic achievement that parents socialise their children into. Like Madood's research into Asian families, Francis argues that irrespective of social class, Chinese parents look to support their children in education, with additional time given by parents to help their children and additional resources. Educational capital in Chinese culture is seen as being worth as much as economic capital. Madood suggests that this, alongside parents' residual cultural capital from previous employment in their homeland, pushes children to achieve at a higher level. There is a whole family investment in children succeeding, a reflection of Chinese culture where providing children with the tools to achieve is seen as an investment for the parents, whose children will look after them in older age. In examining the impact of parental support from Black families, it's worth reminding ourselves of the differences in achievement between Black African and Black Caribbean students. Black African students achieve higher than average, and significantly higher than their Black Caribbean peers. One explanation for this is the greater support networks available to Black African students, with parents and extended families supporting educational achievement and the development of community Pan-African schools in areas with larger African communities. In comparison, Sewell has argued that single-parent families have led to less parental support for Black students, with 24% of black households being single parent, compared to 19% for mixed ethnicity, 10% for white and 8% for Asian households. The workload on predominantly mothers is too excessive to help their students achieve. However, there are a few problems with this concept. Firstly, it relies upon an overgeneralization. Statistically, more black African households than black Caribbean are single parent, and yet black African achievement is on average higher than white achievement. Furthermore, it discounts the impact of working mothers on black girls, whose achievement is on par with their peers. It's also often assumed that black Caribbean and black African students come from a lower social class background, but Vincent examined black parents from middle class backgrounds and found that their investment in their child's education was high, all of which suggests that perhaps in-school factors are to blame for lower educational achievement of black students. Vincent's research brings up an important evaluation point about the intersectional nature of a student's experience. Social class and gender have impacts on students' achievements as well, although in some cases, such as Chinese and Indian students, the lower classes still overachieve compared to middle class students of other ethnic groups. Furthermore, some research, particularly that based in the 1960s and 70s, is based on crude stereotypes and generalizations about different ethnic groups. Research that focuses on the first generation of migration into the UK is not really suitable for analysing differences in children who are second or third generation migrants into the UK and have grown up being exposed to the norms and values of British society. Finally, despite the improvements in educational achievement of most minority ethnic groups, there are still some structural inequalities in society. For Pakistani, Bangladeshi and black students, there are less opportunities in society than for Indian, Chinese and white students, something we will examine when we look at racism in wider society. That concludes this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on differential educational achievement by ethnicity, looking at parental support. Thanks for watching.